Hello everybody, how you doing today? My name is Aquilla Fleetwood and I'm the author of Night Signs. I am a Christian. I believe Genesis 1:14, which says the stars shall be for signs. I believe Psalms 19:1 that says the heavens declare the glory of God. I also believe Psalm 75:6, which basically says that exaltation comes from God out of the north. And I believe Romans 1:20, which says the attributes of God are clearly seen by the things that are made. This is a free audio book by me, Aquilla Fleetwood. This is Night Signs, and I'm going to read most of it to you. This is an introduction. Many years ago, I looked through a telescope for the first time. When I was about 20 years old, a neighbor from down the street had brought his telescope over to my house where I and some other kids were playing after dark. It was one of those beautiful West Texas nights with a full moon surrounded by a host of stars. Although I was looking through a fairly cheap telescope, I fell in love with stargazing then and there. I now own an expensive telescope, which I enjoy, but I actually like looking up at the stars with only my naked eye. When God created the stars, He had in mind using only the naked eye to observe them, and God has continued to bless us by using technology such as these telescopes and the Hubble telescope to see greater distances into His creation. I can imagine how King David would sit by a fire and look up at the stars with a feeling of wonder and amazement. I believe King David understood the ancient language in which the constellations were written and how they truly declared the glory of God. David said, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, O Lord my God. Thou art very great. Thou art clothed with honor and majesty, who coverest thyself with light as with a garment, who stretchest out the heavens like a curtain." Psalms 104:1. I wonder how much more clearly the ancient people beheld the stars, with there being less pollution from factories and cars, not to mention all the lights from big cities that can wash out even the most visible of stars. We need to keep this fact in mind as we look up at the stars today. I was raised up in the West Texas town of Kermit, where you can find some of the best stargazing in the continental United States. As with many things in this life, it seems to be location, location, location. Well, it just so happens that Kermit, Texas is located out in the very middle of nowhere. My hometown is located about 45 miles due west of Odessa. So light pollution is not much of a problem with no other large cities nearby. During the summer months, my mother would let me sleep outside in our backyard. Every now and then, I would see a few shooting stars or a satellite go over. In West Texas, the humidity is usually low, which helps to see the stars more clearly, especially the fainter stars. Sometimes my dad would drive the family to the nearest telescope observatory, which is located in the Marfa Alpine area, southwest of Kermit. We really enjoyed the trips up the mountain to the McDonald Observatory, where the stars can easily be seen in all their glory. I know many books have been written about the stars and constellations, which includes the Bible. Of course, I just said a few verses. They have been interpreted in many various ways ever since man can remember. However, most of those interpretations have been based on ancient pagan myths with their many gods. With this book in mind, I want to go even further in time before there were any pagan gods, to the time of the one and only God. Monotheism came first. The Bible is the only religious book that states how the heavens declare the glory of God. You can't find that statement in the Quran or any other so-called major faith. The reason for that is because Satan does not want you to know the truth about the constellations in the heavens. Simply put, the constellations are pointing us toward the Messiah that was to come to this earth all in due time as God had planned before creation. In this book, I'm going to concentrate on 13 constellations that rotate around the Polaris, or the North Star. All these polar constellations circle the North Star in a counterclockwise direction to the west to east rotation of the Earth. The constellations I want to examine in a new and unique way are commonly called the Big Dipper, the Little Dipper, Draco, Boötes, Camelopardalis, Cassiopeia, Cepheus, Aquila, the Summer Triangle, the Northern Cross, Hercules, Corona Borealis, and Serpens Caput. The obvious question one might ask is why these particular constellations and not others? Well, the answer to that is to be found by reading the following books. And the answer to that also is remembering what I said. Genesis 1:14, the stars shall be for signs, and Psalms 75:6, exaltation comes from God out of the north. Okay, one thing among other things that I didn't know about the Bible is that northward or north is a holy direction according to the scriptures. All these years I had attended church with this fact never being brought to my attention. Somehow I missed it in my personal studies also. It goes to show us that we are forever learning about the mysteries of the Bible. I'm not going to quote all the scriptures in the Bible with the word north in them, but I will quote enough to prove my point. The first scripture is Leviticus 1:11, which reads, "And he," Aaron, "shall kill it," the sacrifice, "on the side of the altar northward before the Lord, and the priest Aaron's son shall sprinkle his blood round about the altar." Once again, the obvious question with this scripture is why northward? I thought God was everywhere, or at least that's what I was taught in Sunday school. Well, then there must be something that we can see with our eyes that will give us the answer to this question. All this stirred up my interest, so I began to search other scriptures that had the direction north in them. To my surprise, there were many scriptures, all in the Old Testament, where north or northward was written in the text. These scriptures in the Bible that I'm going to write for you and the constellations in the north that I'm going for the most part redraw for you will work together to prove my point of this book. In the previous scripture, how do we determine why the bullock was killed on the north side of the altar before the Lord, while the blood of the animal was spread round about the altar? Well, we have to read more scriptures and look at the constellations that encircle the North Star to come up with the answer. Remember, Genesis 1:14, the stars shall be for signs. One very important scripture that most Jews and Christians are familiar with is the book of Psalms. The heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech nor language where the voice is not heard. Their writing is gone. That's what that's talking about. Their voice through writing is gone out through all the earth, and the words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun. Now that's Psalms 19:1-4. How does the night show us knowledge in the scripture? If it is not showing us something we can hear with our ears, then it must be showing us something that we can see or read with our eyes. Well, this would be a new idea to read the constellations. We all look up at the heavens and see falling stars, meteorites, we know how that works, the moon, constellations, and every once in a while a comet. Once you finish with this book, you will know how the stars in the form of constellations relay knowledge to us in the original Paleo-Hebrew language, which was written by the very hand of God using hieroglyphs and word pictures to tell us the story. You heard me correct. I believe that God, using constellations, has written a message for us. However, this message was lost or forgotten through time as man drifted away from God into paganism. Let's read Romans 1:18-23, which says as follows. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all godliness and unrighteousness of men who hold the truth in unrighteousness, because that which may be known of God is manifest in them. For God hath showed it unto them. For the invisible things of him from the creation of the world are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. But that when they knew God, they glorified him not as God, neither were thankful, but became vain in their imaginations, and their foolish heart was darkened. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools, and changed the glory of the incorruptible God into an image made like to corruptible man, and to birds and four-footed beasts and creeping things. So here in this scripture, we have an explanation of the primary mistake that man has committed against God, which was they simply forgot about him. They didn't care. On the last day, man will pay dearly for this mistake with an everlasting punishment. There's only one way to avoid this coming disaster, and that is by obeying the gospel of Christ. The next scripture is Psalms 48, 1-2. Great is the Lord, and greatly to be praised in the city of our God, in the mountain of his holiness. Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion on the sides of the north. The city of the great king, which Zion is this talking about. According to the scripture, there is a Zion on earth, but there is also a Zion in heaven where God dwells. With that being the case, why don't we stop fighting with each other over the earthly Zion and look forward to a heavenly Zion where there will be no more wars? Sure would help the nations of this world to balance their stressed out war budgets. Lord, give us all some politicians with some spiritual wisdom. Okay, let's read Hebrews 12, verses 18 through 29. For ye are not come unto the mount that it might be touched, that burned with fire, nor into blackness and darkness and tempest, and the sound of a trumpet, and the voice of words, which voice they that heard entreated that they should not be spoken to them any more. For they could not endure that which was commanded. And if so much as a beast touch the mountain, it shall be stoned, or thrust through with a dart. And so terrible was the sight that Moses said, I exceedingly fear and quake. But ye are come to Mount Zion, unto the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to an innumerable company of angels, to the general assembly, and the church of the firstborn, talking about Christ, which are written in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to the spirits of just men made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant, and to the blood of sprinkling that speaketh better things than that of Abel. See that ye refuse not him that speaketh. For if they escape not who refused him that spake on earth, much more shall not we escape if we turn away from him that speaketh from heaven. Whose voice then shook the earth, but now is promised, saying, Yet once more I shake not the earth only, but also the heaven. And this word, yet once more, signifieth the removing of those things that are shaken, as of the things that are made, that those things which cannot be shaken may remain. Wherefore, we receiving a kingdom which cannot be moved, let us have grace, whereby we may serve God acceptably with reverence and godly fear, for our God is a consuming fire. Okay, I'll stop there for now, and I'll do a second part. Thanks for listening, and you can move on to the next part.